second. I think we're getting the hang of this now,
Yeah,
So,
I think so. I think we got a good little system set up.
with that being said, we want to thank everyone for joining us for another Unboxed Pod. We are on episode 11, and we have a lot to talk about this week, actually. Despite it being the relatively quiet months of the year for Microsoft, uh, they've still managed to make news and a lot of it. So let's go through what we're going to be talking about. Before I do that, I want to welcome my co-host, who we're talking with today.
David's still here, folks. The old Threads guys around, the Stadia Thrasher,
Yeah,
still hanging out, folks. Hope
I
everybody's
think you
having
should
a good.
change your online persona to the Stadia Thrasher. I think people will get a kick out of it. Maybe not Google, but others might.
Hey, that might get me a little. That might give me a little better following because I don't think I'm the only one out there that wants to thrash Stadia.
Probably not. I don't think you live alone in that box. But yeah. Again, thanks for joining us. We'll be talking about actually some important news. We'll be talking about how Microsoft has finally become 100% DMA compliant in the EU, and all they had to do was get rid of all of their stuff. Um,
That's
we'll be
it.
talking. Yeah, that's it. Just a small thing. We'll be talking about the Summer Game Fest 2024 and what that might mean for people who were dedicated E3 people. We'll be talking about benchmarks for the Surface Pro 10 and Surface 6, Surface Laptop 6, which have crept up online in lieu of their release next week after next, I think. We'll be talking about uh, Copilots, making more Copilots, because why not have more Copilots in the world? And then lastly, we will be talking about, well, not lastly, but we'll also be talking about Google I/O, which will be coming in May, and what that can mean for Gemini, competition for AI in general, and a bunch of other predictions we might have. And then lastly, talking about AI in general, what the actual cost might be for us. And I don't mean in dollars, but in our livelihood, essentially. So stay tuned for that. Let's get everyone started. Let's get kicked off with our first headline, which I believe, for those of you who are watching us, you'll see that we're talking about David.
Summer Game Fest 2024 is hoping to kind of ease the blow of those who loved E3. I was one of those folks, as we know. E3 kind of bowed out early this year and kind of closed the door on that chapter. So time to go do something new. So Summer Game Fest hopes to step in and kind of help fill that void for those that like the online announcements. Um, June 7th, not January 7th. It is June 7th at 2
We
p.m.
just missed it.
Yep, just missed it. We're just reporting it. June 7th, 2 p.m. 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. It is a 2-hour event where you will see game announcements, trailers, and what is coming up for the rest of the year from every game company that is involved. Right now, Microsoft has said they will have a little something out there, and if you're at it's the YouTube Center in Los Angeles. I guess YouTube is sponsoring some sort of arena these days. If you are out there, you can attend the event local. So keep in mind it is a 2-hour event, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern on June the 7th. So make sure you tune in, check that out. I think it's a good thing. I don't think that there's two types of gamers out there. There's those of us, we stare at YouTube all day anyway. We stream. We're used to seeing content online, but I think there is still that group of people that like to go to the event, see it up close, see the people developing the game, and I think most of all, from having attended some local events here, they like to hobnob with the people that develop it and kind of throw out input, get feedback, have that discussion. Because there are people that game for lack of a better way to put it, I have a good friend that is this way, that lives the title, if you understand what that means. And for them, they used to go to these events when we would have them locally, and I would always step back and watch. And they are living the game right there with the developers. So I think for those group of people, seeing E3 go away was a big deal. Maybe for the rest of us, we're comfortable with it online. I think there needs to be something. I'm glad this is here.
Yeah, I've been to a couple E3s before, and as both a journalist and someone in the industry, I used to work for Disney in their gaming department, both online and in their actual console games or whatnot. And so I think what gets kind of overshadowed about E3 going away is the amount of jobs that are produced for this event and leading up to the event. We were always talking about here how we wouldn't say we're the podcast for the common man because nothing we talk about is really common, so to speak. But we do like to acknowledge we live in a world where there are finances and people need to make money. And this is one of the fun ways to do it. This is one of the dream works for people to kind of to work at. And if you're someone who plans for your organization, for your studio, this was, kind of a 3 to 6 month buildup of, making sure you had the schedules correct, you had the employees in position, the contractors on staff, all of your trailers set. People had to work to all work in order to build this stuff,
It was a
and that
production.
was, yeah, it was definitely, to your point, is a very elaborate production for gaming, and it had its merits for that. And we live in a new digitized age where studios and developers and console makers and stuff like that are figuring out ways to kind of optimize their spend, and I totally get that. But there were tons of underreported jobs that these things presented, and I do hope that they're ready to, I don't know, shift those to something else. Hopefully, these people can find other things to do within the gaming industry, and we're seeing how the gaming industry is being devastated by layoffs and whatnot, and it doesn't seem like there's any bright things about it right now. Hopefully, with them allowing people to at least come to the 2 hour presentation, that can be expanded upon to maybe be a new home for this kind of event that becomes something a little bit bigger and a little more inclusive for, uh, you know, gaming conference refugees, so to speak.
You know what I'd like to see? We used to do this back in the day when you didn't have as many digital games as you do now, and you couldn't just go click that download button and wait a couple hours and have your title ready to play. People used to go to GameStop and we would all, line up outside or Best Buy or choose your favorite retailer when the big games would come out. I almost wish there was some way to say, okay, get the GameStops back in it, for what they can do. Get the Best Buys back in it. Get somebody to say, hey, and I'm just going to use this title, Starfield. You know, we're having a Starfield event at your local Walmart. Or and give gamers that place to go, that place to do it in person, because some of the greatest friendships and relationships that I had during my younger days of standing outside of GameStop, usually waiting for Madden, whatever year it was, to come out, was standing in line at a GameStop, standing in line at a Walmart. You don't forget those friendships. You don't forget those moments. And I think in this digital age, it would be good for something like that to come back. It's not going to be as big as it used to be, but on a small scale, you know, something for the gamers. Like you said, right now there's the layoffs, there's, uncertainty about what PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo are going to do in the future. There's not a lot of bright spots. So maybe this is the time to retool some things and do a lot of things a little differently, maybe get the gamers more involved.
Well, we will see what they have to announce in the coming months leading up to this or at the event, and then hopefully like hopefully, like you said, it's good news for gamers in general. We're gonna move on to our next topic, which is bum, Microsoft finally listening to the EU going kicking and screaming, but they are now 100% compliant with the European Union's DMA regulations. And you know how they did it, ladies and gentlemen? Not with a
Please.
wink and a smile. They had to allow people to uninstall OneDrive, Edge, and Bing in Windows 11. That's it. Just a couple small, minor platform services had to be uninstallable on Windows. After Microsoft was named gatekeeper, one of many gatekeepers from U.S. companies, Microsoft outlined several measures to comply with the EU's European Union's DMA regulations. One of which requirement, like we just listed, that people in the EU or customers, users, were able to uninstall OneDrive, Edge, Bing, and pin third-party apps on the taskbar as a replacements if necessary. This is similar to the ballot box that Microsoft has fought for and accidentally backslid on several times when it comes to the browser initiatives. So, if you live in the EU, when you have an open or I guess out of box experience with Windows 11, you're given the option to immediately opt out of Edge and put something there in its place before the operating system even starts. Here in the US, you get Edge and you have to figure out a way to get to Chrome, which fortunately for people who use Chrome, Google's made that very easy and evident. But more in particular, Microsoft has made it part of the list of things that can be removed from the operating system. So again, you're able to in the EU. I think I don't know if it's at the beginning of your initial setup, or if for those people who are currently using Windows 11, because again, this is DMA compliant, which means the ruling came in last week before, or whatever, or at least this month. So there are tons of people in the EU using Windows 11. I'm not sure how Microsoft is going about alerting them, saying, "Hey, those annoying services we offer you guys, you can get rid of them or you can replace them." So I'm sure there's going to be a pop-up that shows up pretty soon. What are your thoughts on this?
I'm going to clarify what I mean here, but I'm going to start by saying I don't care.
Okay. You hear that, Europe? David has no F's to give.
Well, I feel like it's good that Microsoft has given the choices to the user to remove these items. But I look at this from a consumer point of view. If the choice to remove them is there and, you've got the 1 out of 1,000 people, I don't want, Edge on my PC. I don't want Microsoft on there. I just want, what I've got to have to do X, Y, Z. I understand that. We've made that one person happy. But something tells me that if you go remove these items, now I'm making the assumption that they are removed either after you have signed into your PC and customized it, or I'm making the assumption that it is removed when you open the lid and your PC starts for the first time and you go through that setup process. There is a choice there maybe to say remove, Microsoft bundled software, and you pick what you don't want. But I'm going to assume that for those that remove the software or don't want it, how many of you 6 months later, a year later, end up needing that software back? Finding that website that doesn't do right in Chrome or Firefox or whatever you need, or needing to test something in a second browser, or finding a website that requires Edge, or getting a job or doing something in education if you're a student that you need OneDrive. I understand the principle of what we're trying to do here. We don't want Microsoft to have the monopoly. I get it. But I really don't care, because I feel like most people, even if you remove it to spite Microsoft in the beginning, I'm thinking at some point in the life of your PC, you end up putting something, maybe not all the services, you end up putting something back, and this becomes a non-issue.
Yeah, I think you've crystallized that point very astutely. Like again, it's options are always better than no options,
True.
even the perception of options. So, good on Microsoft. Good on the EU for forcing to do this. It won't translate for North America audiences. So don't get your hopes up. But if that's your bag, Linux is still around. I believe this is supposed to be the year of Linux, part 35. So with that being said, yeah, it's we'll see if this makes any difference. I think they've done research on as far as the browser box initiative is gone, and it really doesn't seem to have made that big of a difference. I mean, it makes it look like, again, the perception of choice, but the browsers these days, you have Chrome, and then pretty much everything else, no matter what you install in your PC uh, globally. So good on you guys. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed. Maybe you guys will have whatever localized cloud storage providers are in your area, which again leads more to privacy more than Microsoft's monopoly. So uh, that's at least being addressed. If you don't like Bing, totally get it. Yandex and other local providers are probably better for what you need. And OneDrive, you get it. Maybe you use Dropbox, maybe you use Google Drive or whatever. So again, you have all those options, and you still have the option of using OneDrive, using Bing, and using the rest of these. That just makes using your operating system a little smoother. What I don't want to happen is that people complain about the clunkiness of Windows now, because again, these things were put in place, admittedly, to expand Microsoft's usage and numbers and revenue, which then leads to monopolistic behaviors. But just in the way of Apple, like it's also supposed to be streamlined. The way that OneDrive integrates with the File Explorer currently is a pretty seamless transition where you are basically looking at a UI that navigates your online uh, File Explorer in OneDrive. It makes it almost synonymous and in sync. So when you save something in OneDrive or in your File Explorer and you save it to the cloud, you can then hop on another PC and get that same exact experience without having to say, all right, well, let me go to my first computer that had it on a local hard drive, save it to the cloud, and then I can hop on this next PC, wait for it to register in the cloud, then pull it back down from another PC. Now it's almost a one-to-one where I can basically, because I test a lot of PCs, just save everything to OneDrive and then have that access as though it's my local File Explorer experience on every PC. So again, this may come as one of those situations where people are like, oh man, Windows is clunky again and it doesn't work because I've installed these third-party apps that kind of break that process and that flow. So anyway, enough of us rambling on about this. Good on the DMA, good on Microsoft. We'll see what kind of fruit this bears in the future, but we're going to go on to our next one. And we were talking about Google just a second ago. So let's talk about it a little bit more, shall we? We'll be talking about
Let's do it. We have Google I/O is headed this way. Yesterday was Pi Day for those that.
And I totally missed it. Opportunity to have Pi or even talk about
I did
numbers.
too. I did too. I didn't catch up to yesterday being Pi Day till about 10 o'clock last night, and I'm an old man, so I didn't want to. There's a lemon pie in the fridge, but I
Oh, at least you
didn't.
had a Pi.
Yeah, I didn't indulge myself, but I should have. But while we're on the topic of fun, Google I/O is coming in 2 months, May 14th. Don't know a whole lot about it yet, except to say it looks like most of the event this year is going to be online with a small audience in person, with a little over 100 sessions on various topics, how-tos. According to the Google blog, there'll be roughly 100 sessions on AI, big surprise, Android, Gemini, and all of the Google ecosystem. Now, here's the thing. You go to the website, there's not a lot on there yet, so we're kind of speculating what we can expect. But I think if you unless you've been sleeping under a rock, you pretty much know what to expect. We're going to talk about Gemini. We're going to talk about AI. We're going to talk about all the new things we can do with AI and how it integrates with your product. We're probably going to see some Android 15 information, and guess what? How Gemini integrates with your products. And, it's going to be all things AI. Sure, maybe there's some Chromebook news sprinkled in there for Chrome OS. Maybe there's some, stuff for the speaker ecosystem, some new software or something maybe. But I think most of this is going to break it down to the good old AI and how it plugs into the rest of the Google ecosystem.
Yeah, before we even get into the fun parts of AI, Sundar is going to have to come out and do a lot of explaining. You got some explaining to do, as Ricardo would tell Lucy, because they fumbled the bag with at least with their
Yes.
image thing. Same way Microsoft did. So again, this isn't us ragging on them and it not acknowledging what Microsoft did. Microsoft had the Taylor Swift thing, which is also a big blunder. But it didn't cost them $90 billion in stock evaluation. People are not confident in Google. Now, again, that isn't to say that they may have never been confident in Microsoft. They may have just laughed it off like, poor Microsoft, and their Bing thing is just, it's the same way that they kind of laughed off the initial Bing chat thing. I mean, again, if you were someone in the industry who knows how these large language models work and you're studious to the fact of where AI could go, you might have said, "Oh, Microsoft really messed up the perception of what AI should be doing." I get that argument. Google, which is supposed to be known as the AI company, the large search behemoth in the industry, they seem to just be kind of stumbling over themselves in ways that highlight their, I guess, fear of using this to begin with. I think we've said this several times in the pod, is that Google started off with large language models. They were one of the first companies out of the gate to do it. And I think they maybe, rightly or wrongly so, figured out that this technology wasn't ready yet or wasn't worth it for them to invest in, especially when they had this search market cornered. Microsoft didn't have that same luxury. They had the cloud and they saw an opportunity to kind of pivot to something else new and then run with it. Google is now not necessarily playing catch up, but they are trying to produce a similar experience for Google users or users of the internet or whatnot. So I expect Sundar to come out because I even think it was Sergey, right, that had like some kind of meeting with developers and journalists to explain what happened with the whole image issue. And when we say image issue, this was the issue where they had rolled out their text to image functionality, part of their large language models, and they wouldn't produce what people considered historically accurate images. So if you said, "Oh, show me Napoleon on the his siege of whatever area," they would show you some kind of mixed race version of Napoleon, even though historically he has not been depicted as that. The same thing for George Washington on the Delaware, So and what I guess ended up happening is that Google put in a layer. So you'd have the prompt, then you'd have this layer, and then you'd have the GPT function right underneath it that would produce something else. And with all those things mixed in, this layer was supposed to be trying to produce more diversity in images. And I think it was meant to do for current stuff or fictional things, not historically accurate things. But this, I don't think there was that filter put in place for that. So it ran wild. Some people on the right wing got upset about it. Other people were just kind of scratching their heads about the goofiness of the whole thing. But like I said, it cost the company billions of dollars and a stain on their trustworthiness as far as this thing being a viable solution in the future. So I expect to hear a lot about that at Google I/O, and in conjunction with, we'll probably, like you said, see some tips about maybe how they handle apps on folding devices. Maybe the Pixel Fold 2 will, we won't see the device, but we'll at least get a hint at how that expands, especially in the wake of, I think, was it the One Plus or whatever? They're open. Their operating system seems to be very nice. Maybe the device itself is nice, but the way that they handle apps on that device seems to be really nice. So maybe Google might move in that direction. Samsung might also follow with their Fold 6. But we expect to see that. We expect to, you said, see Android 15. There might be some Android Auto stuff. Definitely Google Maps. That seems to be like big on what they use AI for. Perhaps some stuff in Chrome OS, which would mimic maybe or copy or be similar to Copilot. So you may have your own Google Assistant do a bunch of other stuff for you on Chrome OS, which would be great. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to both of these companies, Microsoft and Google, and even Apple. I think they just bought recently an AI company, so we'll see what they produce when their developer conference comes rolling around.
Well, if you can't build it like the rest of it, you got to buy it.
Steal
I guess.
Oh, I guess you could buy it too.
When you're a billionaire company, I guess you, or trillionaire company. Let me get that right. There's a lot of zeros between billion and trillion. If you
Yes.
are a trillionaire company, I guess you don't have to build it yourself. You can go out and buy it, I suppose.
I mean that's essentially what Microsoft is. So to Apple's credit, I don't know if they're going to be able to buy something as big or as inventive as that, but Microsoft did the same thing. Google is really the only one doing homegrown stuff so far, but we'll see how these companies pivot. Speaking of which, our next topic actually kind of flows right into that. We're going to be talking about Copilot GPT Builder, allowing Copilot users to create custom GP models. And I say this because I think I also read that there's another company recently, and this is brought up by an ex Microsoft executive who worked on AI within Microsoft. They created a company called Creatives AGI, I think, or whatever, where they do a creator or content creator specific GPT model. So instead of having this general GPT model that we all use, this one's designed to help writers essentially create bots that can expand on their own writing. So imagine if, I think there's who is James Patterson uses a ghostwriter. So you see his name in a book and you're like, dude, he just wrote a book 6 months ago. Well, he didn't write the book. He allowed his name to be carried over and someone else wrote a book in the same vein of what he writes. So you're like, oh, he's producing 3 or 4 stories a year, when in fact he's allowing other writers to say, hey, I want to explore gritty crime dramas, but I want to use your name because everyone knows your name, and it's a benefit for both of us. So what you're going to be able to do as a writer is do something similar. Say, hey, you know what, writer GPT or whatever, creators AGI, I write fanfic about the X-Men and the X-Men in the future. Go produce me something similar, and it will do. It'll be based on what you write, and it'll create that. So I think with these custom GPTs, again, Microsoft, and let me get into the specifics of this before I jump back into that tangent. Microsoft's Copilot Pro, the company released the new consumer subscription version that allows, like I said, Copilot Pro users. So you can't go out and do this now if you're just using Windows 11. You need a Pro subscription to create custom versions of Microsoft's Copilot Assistant with just a couple of prompts, which is, I think, kind of cool. The custom GPT prompts can be suited for specific purposes that can range from anywhere from answering questions to completing specific tasks. Copilot's GPTs can also be shared with other users that won't need to pay for the Copilot Pro. So you can basically start your own Copilot Pro business if you wanted to, if you know the exact usage scenarios for these things that you're going to be selling. This was hinted at with OpenAI's developer thing that they did a while back. If you have a Copilot Pro subscription, Copilot Pro GPT Builder is accessible from the new standalone Copilot web app or chat.bing.com, which apparently didn't get changed. Though you'll need to open these links in Microsoft's Edge or Google Chrome. So Firefox people, come on board. From there, you'll need to open the navigation pane, go to the Chats tab, and select CL Copilot GPTs under the Copilot GPTs item. The GPT Builder UI will then guide you through the creation and publication of a system, kind of like a tutorial. Using natural language, you'll be able to define what you want your custom GPT to do and the style at which it should respond. So, probably casual, precise, or somewhere in between that. If the Copilot GPTs work on both desktop and PCs and mobile devices, they can only be edited and deleted on the desktop, though, unfortunately. So you need a computer to kind of manage these things once they're out in the world. Overall, the ability to build your own Copilot GPT should be, a pretty good addition. And for those of you who want to get interested or want to get into this or interested in it, I believe a Copilot Pro subscription is at $20 right now per user. So talk to your organization, or if you're running the organization, talk to your admin about how many seats you might need or what kind of deals you can get at scale. And then you'll get access to, I believe it's GPT-4 and GPT-4 Turbo, which I don't know, those are the latest ones. I don't think they're GPT-5 yet, right?
I've only seen 4 and 4 Turbo.
Okay, so you have access to the latest features of the GPT models of 4 and 4 Turbo. The Copilot's features will also be accessible in, I believe, Microsoft 365 subscriptions, and they will include Microsoft Designer. So I don't know if you'll be able to create a Designer GPT, but you'll have access to it if you're building your own, maybe to add visuals or whatnot. So there's that. What are your thoughts on that before I jump into that back tangent I had earlier about individualized GPTs?
For the web folks out there and the developers, I'm going to tell you exactly what this continues to remind me of. It reminds me of a WordPress website, and a lot of people have dealt with those. The WordPress website has a bunch of plugins that add, plugins add functionality and, allow you to expand on the base install of WordPress. And I feel like these individual Copilots are doing the same thing. And I'm going to touch on a concern I have here, because I think here's the right way to do this. Companies are going to purchase these things. They're going to build these things. They're going to use them. I mean, you take, what comes to mind for me is you take a agency of lawyers. If we have a law GPT, for lack of a better purpose, or a law Copilot, then, they're going to buy that to be able to look up statutes and look up things that they need to be able to look up. But there's something we haven't discussed yet. We keep seeing all this come out. All these add-ons, all these extras. Gemini's doing things. Copilot is doing things. We're waiting to see what Apple is going to do. And even though I have harped about Apple as much as I have harped about Stadia, it makes me wonder if sometimes Apple is making the right move. Because it's been, for how long now? A year? All about AI. And I'm just not, to my knowledge, leave it in the comments if you have seen it. I'm just not seeing or hearing that this company has adopted AI in their workflow and they're doing this with it. Look at what they're doing with AI. It's like the models come, Microsoft announces it, Google announces it. We don't see it go a whole lot further. So I'm
Now,
concerned about who is
okay.
using these, what is the adoption rate, and are we reaching a point to where, I'm not going to say we've done this for nothing, no, but it goes back to something I said about AI in the beginning. We have always gone to Bing.com. We've always gone to Google.com. We've always looked things up that way. You're asking people to change the way they research. It reminds me, for you old folks out there, of going into a library in high school and in grade school. You had the card catalog, you had the encyclopedia, you had the books on the shelf, and then they brought this computer in there to where you could type something in. It would tell you what was in the library. It would tell you where it was at. But how many students actually used that computer and didn't go pull out that card catalog, look that number up, and go get their book? It's great. It's a great resource. I'm just not seeing adoption like I think we should see of the Copilot or Copilot, Gemini. Choose your AI language model. I'm just not seeing adoption and people using it. Saying, "Hey, this is great. This is fantastic." I just see more being pushed out.
I mean, all valid criticisms. I do have a story I'm going to be writing soon. I'm in talks with AT&T. They have their own GPT model that they use within the company, and it does a pretty cool thing. So they are adopting it. I think what we have to understand is that the language of AI needs to be refined. There are things that we are grouping under AI, which are machine learning, which are elaborate prompt based responses, and we also people have to understand that it's pre-generative. What we're seeing as AI, or what we think is AI, isn't necessarily the same thing that we thought our digital assistants are going to be. Were these living digital assistants that could do any and everything? These are pre-generative models that basically formulate things based on the prompt that you give it. They scour, they just suck up all the words and then spit out these words in an order in which it's closely related to the prompt that you gave it. It isn't like it's thinking on its own and it's creating anything new. It's just gathering a source of information and redistributing it, regurgitating it in a different manner. And it does it every now and then in different ways each time, so that you feel like you're getting an individualized response. You're not. So once people understand that, I think it leads to what I was going to say earlier, is that we have this creators GPT model coming out, which is specifically designed to help people write, create videos, produce new revenue streams for YouTubers and streamers and things like that, podcasters or whatnot. And I see that possibly being adopted. It came out, the company started in January. They just started seeding this developer thing, or this creators thing, this month. We'll see how it goes, but I think we're going to get to the point where it's becomes specialized more than generalized. Right now we have general ones, so I don't think people understand what to do with them because it's so broad. When you narrow the scope of, like, hey, I'm in culinary school, and I need an AI to help assist with new recipes, with faster methods, with cleaner ways to do certain things as far as a chef student is concerned. That's when you say, hey, you know what, I will pay a $5 subscription for this AI that is specifically for cooking and for running a restaurant or for hospitality in general. Like, it doesn't do, I don't need it to write me anything. I don't need it to scour Excel and produce things for me. I just need it to do this one thing, and I will pay for that. And it's really good at that one thing. And I think that's what this creators thing is kind of the tipping point to. And I think when people are able to create their own Copilot things, which or Copilot GPT builder is used for, that's when we'll start seeing probably a faster adoption. Because again, to your point, nobody commonly knows what to do with these GPTs. They're like, okay, it's kind of cool. I can play around with it. I can ask it to sing me a song. I can ask it to write me a fitness plan for the next 2 weeks if I want to lose weight. But if it is specifically designed with all the information that is necessary, and privacy included, for one thing, and it's really good at that one thing, I see it starting to become that, that use case for people, that I will pay the $2-3 for this fitness app that has AI built in specifically for fitness and things. So I think we're in the midst of people pulling AI into their services and products to specialize in the one thing that it needs to do, or the one thing that this company produces, and then using that, as their business solution. Again, it won't be like, hey, JetBlue adopted AI and now, it randomly assigns seats to people. It's going to be something more specific to that. There's also the possibility that this could all blow up in everyone's faces. And Microsoft will have invested way too much in these things, because it's going to go to another story we're going to talk about as far as what the actual cost of using AI might be, and it might just be too high to be sustainable. So let's get to our next topic, and then we'll close out with that possibility. Okay. We'll be talking about Surface Pro 10 and Surface 6 laptop benchmarks. You wrote about this. What are you seeing, my friend?
Well, it looks like we're going to finally get maybe what everybody was looking for the end of last year, and we kind of walked away with the old bottom lip poked out that we didn't get. Let me say right off the top, I'm very excited for both of these devices. I have my preference over which one I would prefer to use, given my workflow, I would be a Pro 10 user. That is a very versatile device. I'll have to thank my esteemed co-host here for showing me over the last year and a half or so just how flexible these style devices can be. But long story short, thanks to the German blog, and you may have heard of this one before, Win Future, they're kind of known for getting their hands on some of these things. The Geekbench benchmarks have come out, and we're basically looking at, let me make sure I get these right. The Intel Core i5, we're still at 13th gen, so Microsoft is doing what they do best, staying one generation behind everybody else. So we've got the Surface Laptop 6 running at 14 cores, roughly 4.4 gigahertz if you can maintain the heat, of course. How long will we get that 4.4 gigahertz? We'll have to wait and see. And then we have the Surface Pro 10 that is running the Core i5 135U running at 15 watts. And that one is 12 cores up to 4.6 gigahertz. Now, do remember, benchmarks are not everything here, folks. When you do these benchmarks, like I said, do they run at the max clock speed for 5 seconds for enough to say, yes, we reached that clock speed before they scale back, before they thermal throttle? We don't know. And how the heat dissipates, we don't know that either. Has Microsoft changed any cooling? Again, we don't know that either. So I think what really we need to look for is there's hope that we're getting haptic touch pads this time around, maybe some better connectivity, maybe more Thunderbolt ports. Maybe they'll finally get rid of the Surface Connect port, maybe. Perhaps we're getting an OLED screen. We don't know. Right now, all we have is two code names. One is OEMML, which is supposedly the Surface laptop, and another that is OEMHT, which is supposedly the Surface Pro. That's in the Geekbench database. So, what do you guys think? We've got the event coming up here on March 21st. It's anticipated that this is what we're going to get. It's a nice leap forward in performance. I'm looking for what do they do on the outside of the device? Do they give us that haptic touchpad, that OLED display, more ports? Kind of like what we mentioned in a brief conversation this week ourselves. These are the MacBook competitors for Microsoft. I want to see a more refined product here. Give me the better screen, the haptic touchpad. I understand the limitations of a CPU when you put it in this form factor, no matter what it is. Give me something to push me closer to that Mac ecosystem or that MacBook Pro performance inside of Surface Pro. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, to your point, for those people who might have tuned out as soon as you said 13th gen, it should be noted that I believe this is Microsoft hedging their bet because this event is supposed to be a commercial event with hints of a consumer one. So these 13th gens are basically spec bumps that I think we're getting out early. Now, I don't know if we're going to be getting because I believe it's the Core Ultras that are going to be coming, which are the new ones for Intel, and the Snapdragon. So we'll probably get those benchmarks closer when that's released, which I believe will be in June. So just to clarify everything, Microsoft's going to be upgrading the Surface Pro laptop lineup with a Surface Pro Laptop 6, which will look identical to the Surface Pro 5, but will have a 13th gen chip, which I believe are these chips that we're seeing benchmarked here. Same thing for the Surface Pro 10. It will be called a Surface Pro 10, but it will look ostensibly like a Surface Pro 9 with a new chip. So the ports and the hardware should look relatively the same. I don't think we're going to be getting the new USB-A addition to these. We won't. I think we'll still have the proprietary connector, and probably 2/3 of the event will be about these commercial devices. Now, when I say hedging the bets, I mean I think they're going to jump and finally get into current CPUs for the newer devices again, which will be released in June with the new refreshed look. So that OLED screen you're talking about, those are going to be released in June. I think they're going to hint at it or at least show it off in on the 21st, saying like, "Hey, here's our commercial one. Businesses buy these things. These things are tried and true, same design, which means it'll work with all your ports, all your decks, and all your connecting apparatuses or whatever." But for consumers or those of you who want to jump into the future, here is our newer version. I think they did this with the Surface Pro anyway. They did the Surface Pro 8, and then they introduced Surface Pro X. I think they'll be doing something similar with this. So we'll probably see benchmarks for those devices in maybe, April or May, because then those again aren't supposed to be released until June. So keep hope alive that we'll be getting those 14 gen processes, and to your point at the how you close it out, those I believe will be the M3 MacBook more competitors than what we'll be getting here, which again I believe is a spec bump. And when I say hedge your bets, is that if they go in June and for whatever reason Intel screws them again and they have the hot bag situation, they can always pull back and say, hey, you remember those other devices, the ones that are trusted and tried and true that run a 13th gen CPU that we've been using, that don't have the cool new designs, but we can push those out. We have a ton of those. So go out and buy those. We're sorry that you were burned by our newer devices once again. So that's what I mean about them kind of hedging their bets. Is release a ton of normalized devices everyone's kind of used to that shouldn't give any issues, and then go for the stars in June with these newer devices and designs. So with that being said, you go ahead.
Too, like you briefly brought up, there's going to be the ARM-based ones that will come in June as well. So Microsoft has got their hands full here, and I'm interested to see what the marketing team does with this.
Yes.
If they've got the Intel chip on the left side of the table and they're, I'm going to call it custom silicon because that's what they've always called it with their ARM chips. If they've got their custom silicon, some version of the Qualcomm processor in the other side of the table, how does Microsoft spin this? Because you can't make Intel too mad because they produce your CPUs, but you really want to sell these ARM chips over here. So I'm just gonna make one statement and put a button on it. Is Microsoft headed in the future the same direction that Apple has gone? Apple got rid of Intel, for this Apple silicon. I'm not too far out of believing that Microsoft could, for the consumer market, do the same thing.
I think you're probably absolutely correct. I think what they'll end up doing is what Apple didn't do, is they will reserve their Intel chips for
business.
Commercials. And again, commercial business is where they make their money. That's the bread and butter. That's where devices are being sold. And I think they'll use the ARM versions to direct the design choices for the commercialized ones. So you'll start to see probably consumer ones that are thinner, probably fanless. And the same way that we did a Surface Pro 9 where we had the same UI, the same visuals and same hardware, but two different options. I think that's what's going to happen. They're going to let ARM kind of lead, like, hey, we can make the devices with better screens. And it's because the NPUs that are being put into these, we can kind of guide what Windows can do with a dedicated processor. And because, again, Intel is producing their own NPUs, which I believe should be in these commercialized products coming out. So for those of you who are looking to get the Surface Pros 10 and the Surface Laptop 6, but with the same old design, you'll still get some of these new Windows Studio features because their NPUs being put into those, similar to how they did with the Surface Laptop Studio 2. So all that to say, Microsoft will probably never get rid of Intel, but it may say, hey, we'll make a batch of smaller consumer ones that we'll know will sell in the hundreds of thousands, and we'll make our millions, the ones that we sell in millions, still Intel. We get to have our cake and eat it too, to a certain extent. Moving on, our last thing, talking about NPUs and AI, is how much it's actually costing the environment and how much it's costing humans as far as resources are concerned to run all of these things. A study came out, I believe, in the New Yorker originally. It was written by Elizabeth Colbert, so you guys should go check that out. She speaks with an energy consumption index economist who wrote a paper. I believe his name is Alex DeVry, last name S, whatever. Who works in the Netherlands, and he started his research off by following Bitcoin mining. He realized that Bitcoin mining required a lot of energy, a lot of electricity, a lot of cooling, and it was, for the amount that was garnered, for the resources that were used, it may not have been enough, may not have been a fair balance, is what he was finding out. And so with that being said, he also started charting AI as well. He found a very similar energy consumption metric that was similar to Bitcoin mining, and it just happened to be AI. So with that being said, he writes about, I think the exact number is Bitcoin mining consumes about 45 billion kilowatt hours of electricity per year, dwarfing the use of the entire nation of Netherlands. So again, that's just 1 year this Bitcoin mining can do. In addition to its draw on the electrical grid, Bitcoin mining also results in about 81 million tons of CO2 emissions. That's the other unknown thing. It can draw on electricity, but when you need to cool these things, you're also emitting CO2, and he said that was equivalent to the entire year of emissions from a whole country, which I believe is Morocco, is the one he said. So it's not a giant country, but it's still enough. With Bitcoin energy, he uses that as the barometer, that's what he measures AI against. And in the journal, The Jewel, I believe, it's the journal that he wrote, dedicated research to substantial energy, DeVry writes about the similar trajectory AI and Bitcoin mining are in terms of energy-intensive consumption. He estimates that if Google gets fully up and going with Gemini incorporated into replacing its current search services and platforms, so Maps, search, most of their software, the AI platform could account for more energy consumed by countries such as Croatia, Guatemala, and Kenya at 29 billion kilowatts per year. Again, we're in the billions of kilowatts we're talking about. And, it may all sound nebulous if you don't know what a kilowatt is, but it's still a lot. As it pertains to Microsoft and ChatGPT, ramping up use of OpenAI's pre-generative platform authors a similar energy sink as estimated to be processing 200 million requests per day. That results in roughly half a million kilowatt hours of electricity consumed. Colbert, who was the author of The New Yorker, she also opines that the offers comparison between the average household use of electricity in a day to that of what is being used for ChatGPT. The normal household, I would say a household of 4 probably, peaks at about 29 kilowatt hours uses a day. So you only use 29 kilowatts versus ChatGPT, which uses 500,000. The Verge also spoke with the same individual, Alex DeVry, and he was talking about training a large language model like ChatGPT 3, for example, is estimated to use under 1,300 megawatt hours of electricity, about as much power is consumed annually by 130 U.S. households. To put that in context, streaming an hour of Netflix requires around 0.8 kilowatt hours of electricity. That means you'd have to watch 1,625,000 hours to consume the same amount of power that it takes to train ChatGPT, or at least ChatGPT 3. So we don't even know what the 4th model accounts for. The story goes on and talk about basically it's more resource intensive to train, not let alone provide answers and solutions to prompts from this thing. So we've talked about here in the pod. I'm going to get David into this. How Microsoft's going to monetize it. How not only are they going to monetize it, how are they going to balance out the amount of electricity being consumed, plus keeping the servers cool? We have a picture up here for those who are listening. This is when Microsoft first initially dropped a server into the ocean as a solution for cooling servers and not taking up landmass here on Earth, or at least on the landmass of the planet. I don't know if they're going to be able to cool or run as many servers or any of that stuff if they try and get GPT up to scale that they think they want to get it up to. What are your thoughts on that?
Totally agree with what you just said. I know, we saw earlier this year, you remember the server rack. I don't remember what event that was. Help me out here. What event was that where Sasha was on stage and they were talking about AI and they showed the next generation Microsoft server rack, of how they intend to rack these servers for AI and rack these equipment. But we've also seen mention already of people using or companies using GPUs to power these things. And we know if you've ever built a gaming computer, let me just give you an example. To get a good GPU in your gaming computer so something consumers can process here, you're looking at 1,000, 1,250, a 1,500 watt power supply just to run the graphics card for one PC. So to me, this goes back, and I remember this very clearly when we wanted to run internet to off the mainland of the U.S., the Hawaiis of the world. We had to put the cable under the ocean. All the folks in marine biology stood up and said, "Hey, let's not interrupt the marine ecosystem. We've got to find a way. We've got to find a way to do this efficiently." And, we've talked about being carbon neutral, and, Apple opens every one of their, shows and events. We are such and such carbon neutral. We're using this amount of recycled materials in our products. I feel like AI might be taking this a few steps back. And I don't think the folks the scientists out there, the energy groups, the people that want to see an efficient world, the people that want to see the world here for their grandkids, their great grandkids, etc., they haven't gotten a hold of this information yet. And if they have, they haven't consumed it. Because I feel like if they had, somebody would be knocking on Google's door, Microsoft's door, and saying, "Hey, nice product you got here, but put a muffler on your car, please."
Oh, definitely.
And get control of this. And I just don't think we've got to that point. And when we get to that point, it's going to be a little scary, I think. I think there's going to be some real uproar.
Yeah, I believe Sam Altman even knows this. And this, again, is the CEO, current CEO of OpenAI. He's kind of fostered this technology with a quote saying, "I think we still don't appreciate the energy needs of this technology."
Right.
And that he even says that we need to figure out a way to do this, basically creating something like fusion. He says, quote, we need like radically cheaper solar plus storage or something at a massive scale, like a scale that no one's really planning for. He's admitting that, it's AI adoption, AI usage so far. Now, I don't know about adoption, but at least AI usage is already outpacing what everyone's planning for. So even, we'll see what Microsoft has in store. But I think this goes to my earlier point about specialized GPTs. I think we're throwing stuff at the wall, spaghetti at the wall right now. We're trying to see what sticks, and whatever sticks is what we're going to focus on, which we can then optimize for, versus allowing everyone to have access to AI. Maybe the people who want to pay for it will have it, and the people who want to pay for it only want to pay for specific things. So you're starting to build that funnel, and maybe you can justify the amount of kilowatts used if it's only an AI used to help you create content, which I think help you can create revenue, versus you and I maybe using it, which I would have loved to have been, but creating just recipes or telling me a joke or things like planning script writing or summarizing all my Excel personal files for my taxes, things like that. Maybe we don't get access to that unless you pay for it, and then when you pay for it, you get a specialized Excel version of Copilot, which only uses a certain amount of kilowatts. Who knows? But I think to the point of what happened with Bitcoin mining was that it was maybe too late. Fortunately, Bitcoin mining imploded, but had it been something that kind of took off, we would have probably figured this stuff out way too late. And I believe Alex is kind of ringing the alarm, saying, let's not do the same thing we did with Bitcoin, because he sees AI taking off more than Bitcoin mining. So, we need to get on it now. And right now, as of today, we're basically just following in the same footsteps as we did with Bitcoin mining. So we're in a dangerous position potentially, unless we can figure out a way to create more energy, put spots on land for servers or underwater that isn't harmful for the environment. And we don't need to create solutions that create more problems necessarily. So AI has got an uncertain future, I think, if you're looking at it from an environmental perspective.
I'm going to say one thing. I think AI's got a little bit of an uncertain future all the way around. I think some people are scared of it, first of all. There's this energy issue here that's got to be dealt with, because as you're mentioning in the report, we haven't put AI to scale yet. It's ramping up day by day. I forget the number of requests that you called out that it's being asked to do, but I just don't see where this becomes sustainable, and it feels like the technology is ahead of the product needed to maintain it. For simplistic purposes, Intel comes out with the i12 chip that runs at 7.5 gigahertz. Fantastic. It does it. Can you keep it cool? Can you keep me from having to have a PSU of 2,000, 2,500, 3,000 watts? It's good now, but I don't think we've got AI at scale in any form, whether it's adopted, whether it's not. I want to see what happens to these servers as little as 6 months from now, because Microsoft is going to continue to push out, specific models. Google is going to start pushing out specific models. Apple is going to get involved in this. They're going to need servers. Amazon is going to continue to get involved in this. They're going to need servers. So when everybody's AI models are churning, the power companies are smiling, because that bill has to be paid. But what happens to our environment? What happens to support AI, regardless of who adopts it, who doesn't? Can we afford to operate it? I'm not sure.
And on that terrifying note, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to leave you cliffhanger. Maybe we'll have solutions next week. But I want to thank you guys for joining myself and David for another pod. We hope you guys have a great week. Where can people find you if they want to feel a little more doomed?
I would love to. I'm gonna say it. I look forward to talking to you guys with Kareem here every week on the pod. So if you want to talk after the pod, David PAJ1978, that's on Twitter, X, and Threads. Feel free to scoot over there. I'd be glad to chat with you, throw darts at me, tell me my ideas are crazy. I can handle it. Come on over, say hello.
You can find me at Minehead1 on Twitter /X. You can find me at Kareem Anderson on Threads and Instagram. If you want to just think about something else, again, I talk about comics, I talk about movies, things of that nature. I try not to get too political or too environmental, at least none of them. So if you want to change your pace, you can find me there. If not, go to our website where we write about a ton of stuff. We try to keep you guys informed about all things Microsoft and technology in general. Again, thank you for joining us this weekend. Now go out and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Happy Friday.